We're live and welcome back to the Library of Alexandria. And today we are going to be talking. Look at that. They said the exact same thing that I just said. Literally before I click live, I'm like, we're 3 minutes late. That's on brand. I don't think I've ever started a live show on time. And that's because I wait way too long. I'm doing other stuff before I actually send the invite to everybody else to join. And so everybody joins shortly before we go on, and then I'm always running my mouth talking business before that. So I really should learn from my mistakes, but I don't, which can be tied in to Arthur in the Warlord Chronicles, who also has difficulty learning from his mistakes. So at any rate, we're going to talk about the Warlord Chronicles, guys. I have been wanting to talk about this flippin' series forever. I've been trying to get Johanna to read this series forever, but I just don't have the clout that Jimmy Nuts or Philip Chase has. Like, I don't have enough subs, and you can't really move Johanna's needle unless you're like at 10K. So,
you're the one that I credit for having read the series. Like, you're the one that I've been saying got me to read the series.
Maybe.
We'll hear more about that.
You're messing with my narrative. Stop. So anyway, but I'm so excited to actually talk about this because this was not only the first audiobook that I read that sold me on audiobooks, but this is one of my like Johanna had said in her review, this is one of my favorite series of all time now. It is just like every time I finish an audiobook, before I start the next one, I'm like, but what if I just listened to Winter King instead? Like, what if I just restarted Warlord? So it's very hard. So with me, there are so many people I want to talk to this about. There's so many people who have read it, but it'll get unwieldy otherwise. So with me, I have Johanna and Theo and Sarah. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves really quickly. Johanna, you go ahead.
Okay, hello, my name is Johanna from the channel Johanna, and Alan got me to read Warlord. I did do a spoiler-free review of this trilogy recently, and I did credit especially Alan, but I also got excited about this trilogy also from Sarah's fantastic review and from Theo, who recently read it and raved about it. And of course, I know Jimmy read it and some other friends, but Alan is the one who is constantly in my comment section saying, Johanna, Warlord, yeah. When are you going to read Warlord? And I did.
I would like to say that I think I got a little bit ahead of the curve on this one. Like, I know some other people had read it before.
I think you were, Alan. I think you were. Yeah, just slightly.
And that makes me happy because, I'm the hipster. Like, so I like to read things. Like, I like to be ahead of the wave, not like having the wave crash over me. Greenbow.
You wouldn't have read it had we all read it and raved about it. You wouldn't have read it. So
100%. Theo knows.
We're only here because you started this. So.
Yes, that's true. Oh, I'm a sad man. All right, Theo, how about yourself? Introduce yourself.
My name's Theo. My channel is Rekindled Reader, and I've just been watching these guys for a long time, so I'm just happy to be here and hang out. So I read Warlord. I can't remember why I read it. I saw a lot of people talking about it, and I was getting into a little bit of a historical fiction kind of kick. I had watched Bernard Cornwell's Last Kingdom, and I thought, oh yeah, he wrote those books, and I jumped on them, and like Alan, it's become one of my favorite series. So excited to talk about it. Thank you.
Nice. Sarah?
I'm Sarah from Sarah Reads. Arthurian books were part of my fantasy upbringing, so I had a huge thing for Arthurian series. And in case Alan forgets, because he's very forgettable, or not very forgettable, very forgetful person.
Not forgettable.
The real feelings come out, Sarah.
But when Alan picked this up, I read it with him because he asked me to read it with him.
He left. That's how upset he was.
But we read it at the same time.
I was actually about to ask that.
I do indeed read books when you tell me to read them.
I did remember that. Yeah, you used to. You used to. See, that's the thing. I was everybody's gateway friend until they found like bigger and better friends and they moved on. I'm the gateway drug of BookTube.
I'm still small time, Alan. So these guys have passed right by you, but I'm still
Thank you, Theo. I'm so glad I'll have your friendship for another 6,000 subs. Yeah. Anyway, Sarah and I did read it together, and I didn't was I the one that convinced you to read it on audio because you had a kind of like middling experience with Winter King, or you liked it but not as much as like you could have, and I was like, you should listen to it on audio.
I gave it 4 stars along with another book that I read that same month, which I think is what fractured our friendship to begin with.
Was it Nevernight?
No, Sarah thinks that Empire of the Vampire and Winter King are equal.
I was close. close. I got the right author.
You were
Yeah,
close.
those are the same.
Yeah, you did.
Those are the same in quality.
Mm.
The worst.
I'm
Yes,
not even
there
going
is-
to apologize because it'll mean nothing. You won't even hear it. It won't even go. It won't even go through.
Yes, thank you. I am the Derval to bigger book two to Arthur. That's me. I am alone in the
Yeah.
cloister with freaking what's the
Samson.
But
Yeah.
I've recently
Yeah.
declared Derval as one of my favorite characters of all time now.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Derval's fantastic. So what I do want to talk about is so the interesting thing about this is that I hate King Arthur retellings. I don't like the Tale of Arthur at all, except for Sword in the Stone, Disney's Sword of the Stone. Ooh, that's for you, Johanna.
thank you.
And I'm still your friend, even
Yes.
though
So this is
You hate the
this is
things
actually
that I
very
love.
interesting because Alan doesn't really like the Arthur stuff. He loves this series. Sarah has a long history reading Arthurian stuff. I've never read Arthurian stuff before. I mean, Sword in the Stone was kind of whatever, but this is the first time I actually dove into. I never read the Mallory stuff. And so this is kind of new to me. So, and Johanna, I wonder what your experience is before this with Arthurian stuff.
Yeah. for sure.
Sword in the Stone is one of my favorite movies of all time. It was
Okay.
probably my gateway drug into fantasy
So
as a
good.
kid.
So good.
It's so good. I watched it so many times. I actually watched it the day I started The Winter King. But
Did you really? Cool.
I think part of me just was dying to relive that. I did read
Mhm.
La Mort d'Arthur in high school by Mallory,
Okay.
but I
never
don't
have. Yeah.
remember it. And I read Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and I recently reread Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. So that's more fresh in my
Cool.
memory. But yeah, I don't really remember La
Okay.
Mort d'Arthur very well. I had to read it for
Right.
high school English. But this was everything I wanted. It was like everything I wanted, honestly.
Cool.
Yeah, this is such a good point, Hayden. You come to Warlord for Arthur and you stay for
Yes.
Derval.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
so true.
That's so
I came
great.
for Merlin, actually.
Oh yeah. So I had read T.H. White's Once and Future King in high school, and then in college I read Mists of Avalon because the girl I was dating at the time was a huge Zimmer Bradley fan, and then I'd watched the Sam Neill Merlin show, and I'd seen Sword of the Stone, and obviously Monty Python, which has nothing to do with anything, but still Arthur, and I have always despised the character of Lancelot. Like always. Like I have always despised that the dude betrays his friend and gets with his friend's wife. Like that is always stuck in my craw. And so I've hated Lancelot, and I hate everything that portrays Lancelot as a good guy. I hate it. And that's why we're going to talk about Lancelot in this series as well. But so before we start talking about this series, did you guys have any historical fiction? What was your experience with historical fiction just in general prior to Warlord? And had you read any Cornwell before? Because I had read Cornwell's, I only read Cornwell's Sharp series, about half of the books. And I was already a huge Cornwell fan. Like I knew he could write battle scenes really well from the Sharp series, which takes place in the Napoleonic Wars. Most people I know had read his or watched Last Kingdom or read his Saxon books. So that was my experience with Cornwell. And as far as historical fiction, most of what I had read was Sharp, like Napoleonic age stuff, and then some Roman stuff. And then, like I said, a few Arthur things. So Sarah, what was your experience outside of Arthur, with historical fiction prior?
I read a fair amount of historical fiction. I probably read too many centered around World War II because there was a period of time where I was in book clubs, and those are the kinds of books that book clubs always
Book Thief
to read, and The Book Thief. But I do like historical fiction. I think there's a lot of overlap between things that I like about historical fiction and things that I like about fantasy if they're done well. So I would say that it is one of my more read genres, but not over the last couple of years. I had not been reading a whole lot, and then reading these books made me want to read more.
Nice. Theo?
Same. I actually read, I think I read a little bit of Christian Cameron when I was younger. And that's kind of it. I think, I can't remember what else I'd read. I made mention in a video that I made that I've read a little bit, but more dense books that were more kind of history and not really fiction. And at the time, I don't know if I even really understood what historical fiction was or could be, which is exciting now, having read these. And this is kind of the first series that got me into a historical fiction mood and aware of the fact that I could really enjoy it and understand what it could be for me, right? As a fantasy predominantly reader. So that was kind of it. I watched, like I said, The Last Kingdom with my wife. It's not a show that I thought she would really like, but she did. And that says a lot because it's not really an era. She's not huge into the Saxon and Viking stuff. And that's not really her jam, but we loved it. And the story was really good. And I sort of had heard about Bernard Cornwell. And when I made that connection and then I started seeing the Warlord stuff, I thought I'd start there with him. So I've only read the Warlord Chronicles by him. I've watched The Last Kingdom. I want to read the Saxon stories once I let that show simmer a little bit because I just watched it not that long ago. And that's kind of it. I've read some Iggulden now. I'm going to read a little bit more with you. And that's kind of it. So I'm fairly new to historical fiction. And I just it's weird because I'm Greek and I've always kind of had an affinity for like Roman and Greek history and stuff, but I've never really explored down that path, particularly not in the fiction area. So I'm really excited. I'm very new to it.
Cool. And yeah, Ben, we're going to be talking about non-spoilers to start with. I forgot that my actual first forays into historical fiction are James Clavell. The very first historical fiction book I read was Shogun.
Shogun, cool.
Because my best friend had read Shogun and Taipan and Gaijin and recommended Shogun and Taipan like uncategorically. And I read Shogun.
We're reading it in January.
I know, I'm joining that read along.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Yay.
You're joining the Shogun read along. When Long Price Quartet in its entirety is shorter than Shogun.
I'll read the Long Price Quartet.
The Shogun is Alan
we
approved.
Can do that.
Yes, I know, but the problem is I want to read Shogun, but I ain't got no time in January to read all 1,400 pages of Shogun.
What if we did it really slowly, and you and I could just do a slow version?
You know what? If y'all are reading it slowly, I might actually join because if there's like
maybe that's the way to do it. Because it's going to be long for a lot of people.
Whatever week you're going to read, I might actually be able to do that because I've been looking for a reason to reread Shogun. Because my minor in college was Japanese and like with focus on like Eastern Asian studies. So I loved Shogun. And then Taipan is very different and just as good. Like,
cool.
I almost like Taipan better nowadays just because it deals with like Hong Kong and like the trading houses, like right after the Opium Wars. Oh, I love Taipan, and it doesn't get nearly
talk about it as much or read it as often.
Yeah, it doesn't get nearly the love that Shogun does. But yeah, so that's the first that I read.
Is it chronologically the next one?
Yes, yeah, it's
okay.
It's chronologically afterwards, and then Gaijin is like the descendants of Blackthorn and them in Japan. Okay. It's in Japan again. It's good, but not as good. Sorry. And I think it was the brothers Gwyn that I kept hearing them talk about Warlord. Oh, yes. I was dissing Lancelot on something because that's just my thing, right? And the brothers Gwyn were like, you don't even understand. Like, if you hate Lancelot. Oh, I was talking about Hakeswill. That's what it was. Hakeswill in the Sharp books is the most reviled villain I've ever read in anything ever. And the brothers Grimm were like, he writes like Lancelot in the Warlord Chronicles is just like, it's just as bad. Like and that is what had me pick it up. Is I was like, I gotta see. And so I owe it to the brothers Gwyn and the fact that one of my patrons picked this. It was on like the vote for the patron vote, and this is what people voted for. And so I was like, oh, I guess this is what I'll read. And I could not be happier. Sorry, Johanna, your experience with historical fiction.
Oh, it's horrible. I have the only historical fiction I've really read is maybe some YA historical fictions, like Kristen Hanna's The Nightingale.
Is that a thing? I didn't really know that was a thing. Like, how big is that YA segment of that genre?
Yeah, like The Nightingale by I think Kristen Hanna's books I would consider YA, and one called Fountains of Peace that was like one of the Spanish Revolution, and it's by a different author. I can't remember the author's name for that one. And I also like a really weird subgenre of sci-fi, which is time travel historical fiction. So like 11/22/63. I know that's more recent times though, so I don't know if that counts. Or one I read called Summer of Love, it's 60s. Timeline by Michael Crichton that goes back to medieval France. I just love that. I love that stuff. So I know not everybody's a big fan of time travel. I'm a weirdo. I know, Sarah, you're not. But I love it.
I still like
it's because it's tough. It's tough to do well, I think. That's why.
Yeah.
Right? It can be hit or miss for a lot of people. So
yeah.
When it's done well, it's fun.
but I'm not very well read in it. And shout out to the Brothers Gwyn though, because I know that they've been doing so much historical fiction.
Oh yeah, they are the
content on their
They've got me
channels.
hyped. Yeah.
They're
And they've
beasts.
definitely made me interested in reading so many different books. But yeah, I'm so eager to get to Shogun. I loved Bernard Cornwell's Warlord Chronicles, though, so much that I feel like I need to read more Cornwell now because I just thought his
Yeah.
writing was so good and it was so convincing in Derval's perspective that it's just made me curious to see how his writing transfers to other things. Kind of like Robin Hobb. I got to read Farseer trilogy this year and loved how powerful she was and Fitz's perspective, that it's made me curious to read on in the realm of the Elderlings and see how good her writing transfers to other types of perspectives or third person.
Yeah. Now Ben is right. Like the writing is a lot different in Sharp, and so I love the Sharp books. They're not. There's 20 something of them. They're not better than the Warlord Chronicles, but there is something about Sharp that, you know, from someone who likes military fantasy, that it's like I can't not like it, especially since it's literally Flintlock fantasy without the fantasy. And he writes such despicable villains. Like they're just, I hate them so much. And there's nothing better than Hakeswill. I can't. Like Ben was, he and I were talking about it. He read both too and agrees that Hakeswill, like Lancelot's despicable, but Hakeswill is he's just next level, just awful. But Cornwell writes war. You what?
Is Sharp over? Is that one completed?
It was for a long time. I think there was like 20
He just released
years.
one, didn't he?
Yes. Yeah. So there's been two that have come out in the last couple years, or the last like
23 or 24 or something stupid.
Yeah,
like
but
that.
before that, there was like 10, 15 years without a book. So it's just kind of restarted. It's been a long time since the last Sharp book prior to the last couple years. So that pleases me. I've never read all the Sharp books. I'm going to get through them eventually. I reread the first chronological 3 just recently. So moving from historical fiction into The Winter King, we're just going to talk non-spoilers. I thought that, like, so the audio for me was such, like, Jonathan Keeble is such a phenomenal voice actor. Like, he is a phenomenal narrator. Like, I don't have interest, like everyone who's been watching my channel knows that I don't really like Viking things like the Saxons. You know, they're invading in Warlord. Like, that's not really my thing. Northerners with big ol' axes, like that's not my thing. But the fact that Jonathan Keeble narrates the first 4 Saxon books almost makes me want to pick up the first 4 Saxon books on Audible and just listen to him, because like he's just phenomenal. I wish he had done more and not so many like Warhammer 30K like books. But he is, I think I have said that the reason that this is probably a better book series on audio is because there is so much setup with places and Welsh words in the first book that I would have been slow going if I had read it to start with. When I started listening, and when I would go back in the book and look, I'm like, that's how you spell Gorfithid? Gorddyddd? What?
There's like a TikTok or something going around that everybody's been sharing on Instagram where someone's reading a fantasy book and it's just like this is how I felt when I was reading the first book, because there were all of these place names, all of these people names, and I had no idea what was happening, and so none of them were sticking in my head. So maybe if I had listened to book 1, it would have been a 5-star book.
It was, and the fact that Derfel, like, his name's pronounced Dervel, but I wouldn't have known that.
Right.
I thought it was I thought it was Dervel until I looked at the book. I'm like, oh.
It does say that though in the cast list. It does show the pronunciation that
there is one at the back,
Derval,
which is really helpful. Yeah.
But I agree with you, and actually I know Chaz from Bookish Chaz, he visually read the first book and didn't really connect with it, and then he listened to books 2 and 3 and loved it from there on out.
I read probably 50-50. So my beautiful wife got me the 3 books for my birthday, I think. And so because I wanted to read them. And so I read The Winter King kind of 50-50. And then I picked up the audio, and I didn't want to buy the audio because I'm like, well, I already have the books. Like, what? But I did because I heard it was very good. And so I did 50-50, and that helped tremendously, and I enjoyed it so much because of that. I could go back, continue reading. I know how things are pronounced. I kind of got my bearings.
Yeah.
Continued with the audio because I enjoyed it, and then I read the other two just audio because they were so amazing. So that's kind of how I did it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like what Ben is
I
saying.
fell in love with them.
His like Keeble's performance when he's being the characters is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But like his just regular narration voice is great. You also experienced both of them, Sarah. How did you feel?
I appreciated it for the pronunciation. I think if I had listened to book one, I probably would have felt immersed in it more readily because it was the pronunciation that was holding me back. And if I don't know how to say something, I can't remember it. So for the first half of that book, even though I've read a ton of Arthurian stuff, there were other names in there that I did not know, and there were place names that I didn't recognize because often they get translated, so you get like the anglicization of the names in lots of retellings.
And there's a lot thrown at you in that first book. Like
there is, especially the first half. So the first half of the first book felt really slow to me, and then I loved the narration for the other two. But I also loved the book so much that I couldn't only listen because I read a lot faster than I listen, and I am not Kyle, so I'm not going to speed it up to like 7 times speed so that I can make
let
it.
Let us all thank our stars that we're not Kyle.
So I would take pauses. Like if I got to a really intense part, I'm like, okay, I need to read it soon. And then I read this like the latter half of the last book because I just didn't want to wait to listen.
Right.
But the narration is amazing. It's excellent.
Right. It is. And we can talk about specific sections when we get into spoilers. So what did you guys think of, when compiling a list of like I'm going to make a video of things I like in like my fantasy books and stuff. And I have realized that the frame narrative is one of my favorite things. I love someone, and I didn't realize this really till I read Warlord, and then Richard Swan came out with Justice of Kings, and I read that, and it has a very similar framing device. I love these people they have already lived through the events, and now they are retelling it to us through their eyes. And I just really like that. I don't really know why, but I love the fact that we got old man Dervil telling us, the truth as he knows it about Arthur, and trying to kind of dispel.
Can I ask you a question about that, Alan? Sure. Do you like that as a narrative structure in other books, or is that predominantly like a historical fiction thing that you vibe with?
Well, I like it. I like it in fantasy too, in like Justice of Kings.
Okay.
I haven't read it.
It works really well in historical fiction, right?
It does. And I think like Cornwell's books lend themselves to audio really well. I think historical fiction lends itself to audio just really well.
Right.
In general. I haven't read a ton of fantasy that is like that. I have read fantasy that's like that. What was that?
Yeah.
Did you hear
Sorry. That was me.
Oh, okay. I was like, is someone?
I can't type, so I'm trying to bring it up because I wanted to answer Ben without like interrupting. But I can't type on my computer because I'm not logged in.
Hold on, where it is?
I think I know what you're talking about.
Okay, first of all, that's weird. I don't want to read The Joy of Sex with Jonathan Keeble.
With Jonathan Keeble.
Zimnonia. So Albert just read them. Albert, what was your experience just having read them? Well, Albert liked them, but.
Can I say really quickly that I did immersion reading, so I used the ebook, and there's a function, I don't know if you all know about this, like with ebook, that you can download the audio with it, and so you could play the audio with it.
Build a theater and perform it.
I think that's a Kindle specific
and it
thing,
like
right?
highlights the text
I wish I had that.
while you're highlights the text while you're reading it, and you can still speed it up and stuff. I can't read that fast visually as Sarah can, so for me it was fine.
So Caitlin DNF'd it and then picked up the audio and loved it.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
it speaks to how good it is. Yeah,
you should definitely add Kyle to the bingo board. Kyle Slander, and the problem is like Kyle and I made up 2 nights ago because we share an absolute passion for the historical fiction of the 3 kingdoms of the Han Dynasty in 3rd century China, and then he always messes it up. Like he can't just leave well enough alone. He's got to come in and be like, your opinion is wrong, and it's like, no, your opinion is wrong. First party.
I also want to say really quickly that I also love framed narratives. I think that's something I've learned about myself, is I love them so much. Another example is in Stephen King's Dark Tower series, book 4, amazing framed narrative there.
Yes.
It's amazing.
That's why book 4 is my favorite.
Yeah, it's my favorite too. Yeah, so I love that structure as well. And I think that one of the things that I loved about Dervil telling the story is that it seemed like, he paints himself kind of like as a side character. And I mean, we think of him as a side character, I guess, because Arthur is the one who's kind of the focus of the story. But at the same time, I felt like even though he kind of made himself out to be that way too in book 1 in The Winter King, and then as you go on in the story, it felt like he became more of the focus for me.
This is the guy. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I just loved him more, but I also love that when he talks about himself when he's young, he doesn't paint himself out to be this like perfect person either. He
So
doesn't
it's the
make him
anti-Quoth from Name of the Wind.
exactly. Yes, he's not a Quoth. He's not a Quoth.
Well,
And
I'm
so
sad
he
we
doesn't
didn't
make
get
himself
100
to be
pages
out.
of Dervil with fairies, like getting it on with fairies. Like,
Yeah, I tried to say that in my review, like, because a lot of times when you're in first person and like with Kvothe, he's very special. And same with Darrow from Red Rising. I feel like Darrow is kind of a special guy. And even though Fitz is a little more, he suffers a lot more, I kind of feel like he's still kind of the center of the story at the beginning. I know you haven't read Farseer. I won't say anything more than that. But I felt like with Dervil, he was really a side character in that first book. But I also really appreciated the way he talked about himself that way, because how many of us are going to look back at ourselves when we were young and say, oh, I was so smart and I made so many wise decisions and I just was so great.
Both will do that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess some people would. But I like the fact he didn't paint himself out to be this perfect, amazing person. When he was young.
I mean, he's trying to understand what's going on. He is friends with Arthur, and he's just trying to be a good friend through the whole thing. Like that's Dervil's
right to the end.
Yeah. And the relationship between Dervil and Arthur is such a good friendship, and it is like infuriating and heartbreaking at times.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's so good.
And it's because Dervil is so authentic, right?
Yes.
And that's what lends well to that relationship and his dynamic with everybody. Because all those relationships feel so good to me, and I think it's because the character, specifically Dervil, is just so authentic. I really like him. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Sarah, thoughts on Dervil and the structure?
I love Dervil. Love frame narrative. Empire of the Vampire has frame narrative, so now Alan's going to read Empire.
Okay. So guys, like Rottweiler's a Rottweiler's a dog, but not all dogs are Rottweilers. Like just because it has frame narrative doesn't mean I love the. Oh, I guess I better go read Empire of the Vampire. I read the first chapter. It's awful.
I do love
Did
Dervil.
You really?
Dervil is lovely. I love him. I agree that you feel much more connected to him in books 2 and 3. Book 1 is a lot of setup for him, learning about how he came to become part of Arthur's sphere and move away from that like child looking at their hero into a part of the story. So books 2 and 3, Dervil is definitely an easier Dervil to love. And I also do like that narrative choice. What I really, really like about Warlord is the interactions we get to see between Dervil and the princess, or I guess she's a queen at the time that he's writing these memoirs. And he knows that she's actively changing his story, and he's so upset about it because it's
So good.
so hard to paint them all as real people. And I really like that part. That was excellent.
Yeah, I love the way the series is playing with the established mythology about like the reason that we have all of this sword in the stone, Merlin, like, doing this, Arthur and Camelot, is because people wrote down Dervil's story wrong.
He's like, there wasn't really a sword in the stone.
Yes,
there was a sword on the stone, but
and there was that part where she was like, "Are you sure? Like, are you sure it wasn't like in the?" She's like, "No, I'm sure."
The most infuriating part is the fact that she will not accept that Lancelot was a tool. She is not going to listen to that Lancelot slander. She's not going to do it. Like, she's like, no, he was brave and handsome, and it's like,
that's what everyone says. Yeah,
he was a freaking snake. Like, Lancelot had the best PR rep, like, to get where he is in modern, like the modern mythology. Like, what a flippin' tool. We're gonna talk plenty about Lancelot. I hate.
I mean, don't you all think it's brilliant though? Because I mean, he could have been and he might still be, I don't know, an unreliable narrator in some ways. Because I mean, he did say at one point that he might embellish things or something like that. There was a line about that. But at the same time, Isn't it amazing the way that Cornwell gets you to trust Dervil?
It was expert. Yeah.
I mean, he really got me. He built it. He built it in like a slow burn way. And then once it was there, I was like, I'm just committed to Dervil. And Dervil's not perfect either, actually. I mean, he makes a lot of dumb decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Dervil's the best. Like he is such a good narrator, like such a good MC. Definitely one of my favorite narrators. Hold on, someone asked a question. Oh, did you guys like how the magic, like the fantasy part is kind of like, it's like, is there magic? It's because you have well, we can't talk about it, but you have the one part where it's like, oh, this isn't real. But then it's just like, whoa, the calls are or whatever, like,
this is exactly what happens in David Gemmell's Troy trilogy. So he does the exact same thing, which I loved. And I liked that so much because it reminded me of Warlord. So he creates a story based on, oh no, Alan's gone again, based on a mythology that has magic. And you're left to wonder whether or not there's magic. Is there not? Is this explicable? So they have some of the same strengths.
Are you glaring at Sarah?
I'm glad you had that loaded in the chamber to bring up. Hey, Alan, you know what else does this? This awesome series that you would have liked that we read without you. So no, I'm glad we got that. We got that in there. You're right. I wouldn't know anything about that, having not read it.
Before the next live show, I would like
I'll read it with you
about what I can talk about.
Yes,
I got you, bro.
It's going to be like these press junkets where I give you the questions you are and are not allowed to ask. You do not have to read Arthur.
No, I didn't, and I loved it. Like I would, don't have to. I thought I did have to. You don't have to.
But yeah, Sarah, going off what you're saying, I like that also to where, because it's really kind of, I don't know, it's kind of the anti-Sanderson where it's just like, it's not like, and then Merlin burned tin and he pushed Dervil away into the ground. And then Dervil threw down a coin and pushed on the coin.
Are we talking spoilers, by the way?
Not yet. Almost.
Okay.
We're almost there.
Yes, I love that, by the way. And I actually had that question. I started out buddy reading this with Zara, and I remember that was one of the first messages I asked her. I said, is magic real in this fictional world? I immediately had that question starting the first book. Fascinating.
I really like, and this is just the Roman nerd. I love the fact that the Romans loom large over there. Like they've just abandoned it. The Romans ditched it at the end of the 4th century. And so like all the Romans are still there. Like their presence and their effect of having occupied it, they've occupied it since 100 AD, or sorry, 54 AD. So they've been there for like 300 years. And then all of a sudden their freaking crises of their problems have forced them to abandon it. And so now they've left it vulnerable because while the Romans are conquerors and oppressors, the Romans defend from outside invaders. That was the bonus you got for being Roman. And so you have all the Saxons and all of these people, seeing Britannia as, easy pickings. And you've got the Roman villages, and you compare those with the villages that are of the tribes of Britain rather than like the Roman structures. I don't know. I just really liked the remnants of Roman presence.
I thought of you when I was reading about that stuff. I was like, oh, I could see Alan loving this. The other thing I was thinking about, there's a reference in one of the books. This isn't really a spoiler, where they're kind of poking fun at Marcus Aurelius.
I hate Marcus Aurelius.
I know you hate meditations, right? And so they were kind of saying it was, I don't know, there was some kind of insult they made about that. I wrote in my notes, I'm like, Alan probably loved reading this.
There's an old priest that makes a reference that
Platitudes in bad Greek written by a Roman boar.
Correct. That's meditation by Marcus Aurelius. It was his freaking journal, and we've taken it as some kind of philosophical treatise. We took some bro's live journal offline, and now we're studying it. Like, get out of here. Like, it's his freaking daily notes. Marcus Aurelius, like, ugh, get on my face. Yes, diversity of culture is great. So before we get into spoilers, I think Cornwell does this in the short books as well. I think he writes fantastic characters. It's not just Dervil. I love Sharp in his Sharp books. Obadiah, like he writes hateable villains like Lancelot, frickin' Gorfithid's problem, and let us not forget Mordred.
Oh, Mordred's the worst.
I hate
It
Lancelot
sucks.
more, but I understand if people
Gross,
people vote
yeah.
Mordred as the worst. Like I get that.
Yeah.
He just writes like an Arthur. Arthur is incredibly complex as a character,
Oh,
like
yes.
infuriatingly complex.
Yeah, I don't know if I loved Arthur or if I just was frustrated with Arthur for the whole time. Like I don't know. Like obviously I liked him as a character, but did I like him or did I?
I don't think I did. I don't think I liked Arthur. I think Arthur is a.
I don't know.
Kind of I don't know.
We're gonna have to get into that in
I
spoilers.
wanted to like him. Like I
Same.
felt like Derval wanting him to just, you know.
Same. And in Arthur's defense, he has a lot on his plate and a lot on his shoulders, and he does not make
Very human. Yeah, 100%.
He's great, but he does not make the decision that I want him to make.
Oh
Right.
man.
Often.
Totally.
Yeah. Oh,
He's
absolutely.
principled, except for that one time
Yes.
when it ruins everything.
Yes.
Well,
There
that's.
were 2 times. There were 2 things he did.
Oh yeah. Well, what makes me the other time, the second time, is like he's actually. We'll get into spoilers in a second. Hold on. So, anyway, anybody have anything else that's non-spoiler to talk about before we move into the stuff that we really like?
I just want to say really quickly. And I thought about putting this in my review, and I didn't. I don't know why, but I think that one thing to consider, especially if you're sensitive to how women are treated in books, there is a lot of brutality, I think, towards female characters, especially in book 1, especially with the court kind of warlord culture and things like that.
Yeah. And children too.
Yes, and children too. Yes, they don't get it easy in this story. I do think, though, that the female characters in particular get way more layered and interesting from book 2 on, more so than even in book 1. You do get some really cool female characters introduced in book 1, but then in book 2, I feel like there were some really good conversations.
Like it was a tough time for everybody, but the strength and resilience of everybody, men and women, kind of starts to come to the forefront. So that was pretty cool. Yeah,
Absolutely. Like I love that Cornwell portrays the brutality of the era, but it never seems like he's being like sensationalist about it. Like he's not putting this stuff in.
It's just
like,
it just
look at how edgy I'm gonna be here. Right. No, he's just. I think it's a really realistic portrayal.
It was very understated actually at times too.
Do what?
Surprisingly, it was kind of understated at times too. It kind of just it was done pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's he's
what's happening, but it's not gratuitous, which is always
right.
Yeah, absolutely. And then freaking Gorfithid, like 90% of his lines in the last third of the book is calling someone a name. That's all he does for the last third of the book. Gorfithid gets mad. Anyway, so let's talk about spoilers. So anyone, if you should read this, like you should categorically read it. As you've seen, everybody here loved it, and even people who did not like reading it enjoyed it on audio. So it is a magnificent series. Like it's just so well done. Oh yeah, life is definitely not very good. And I'm not going to say that like is it better under the Romans? Because I mean the Romans weren't super, but I mean the Romans they established order. And so there was probably less of the raiding and stuff that happens in this book under the Romans, but the Romans have left them like, hey, fend for yourselves, guys. We got to go deal with the fact that we can't keep an emperor longer than 2 years. But you guys should definitely check it out if you haven't. So we're gonna talk about spoilers. So
cool.
We'll kind of bounce around and everybody can kind of talk about what they want to talk about. I want to talk about, to start with, Derval and Arthur's relationship. Like I love how that happens, and this is what like Cornwell knew exactly how to get me. Arthur has this unbending code and we see him act harshly because he's like, everyone is subject to this, and he does things that it's like, dude, like, I mean, that's brutal, but that's fair. Like you're being fair because everyone is following the same rules.
Yeah.
And then Arthur, like most human beings on the planet, the rules apply to everyone except Arthur. When earlier he's like, oh, I can't because that violates the code. I can't do this and this and this because
My
that
oath, right? Yeah.
do what?
My oath.
Yeah, I break my oath. And then this piece of trash throws the entirety of Britannia into chaos because he needs to get with someone else's betrothed. And like, guys, I screamed. I was physically angry because Derval sees it. Derval is like, what are you doing, bro?
Yeah, this is not going to end well.
No. And the thing is, everyone knows it's not going to end well. And Arthur is just duncified. He's like, well, no, we're going to run off. And what are you talking about? You're going to run off. And everything that goes wrong in the books can be traced back to Arthur.
It's his fault.
all goes back to that one event. Yeah.
It goes back to love, Alan.
Yes, it's not really Arthur that the code doesn't apply to. It's Guinevere. Like, that is the one exception.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because he keeps breaking the rules.
Right.
Because he will keep any other oath. He will be harsh with himself. He will deny himself things. He will break friendships. He will do the hard thing, except when it comes to Guinevere.
I hate Guinevere too. And now take the chat. Alan hates women. No, I don't. I hate women in the Warlord Chronicles named Guinevere. Because you know who I don't hate? Derval's wife. What's her name? Cywin? Not Cywin. It's
Kynwyn.
Yeah, Kynwyn. She's awesome.
Awesome.
She is.
Yeah. That's a love story, hey?
Oh, yeah. That is love right there.
Yeah.
Arthur's trash is, hey, what if I just threw the fate of the nation to the wind and said, you know what? What if everyone just died because I like this hot chick? You freaking idiot.
But she's super hot, Alan.
What?
Super hot, apparently. She's super hot.
Okay, so listen. My students do this all the time. They will forgive any sin because they'll be like, but Mr. Walker, but they're hot. Oh, you're right. I forgot that's the armor of invincibility. Do whatever you want. That's fine. Destroy an entire kingdom as long as they were attractive. No, that's okay.
Okay, I have to ask you a question because you hate Guinevere, which I think is acceptable because she does some really bad stuff in the series. But she's an amazing character. He does such a good job with her. And the way that he changes he might not change your mind, but the way that he has to change your perspective from book 1 to book 3.
He changed my mind a bit. That redemption for me actually worked quite a bit.
Agreed.
She's a great character, but no. I do not forgive so easily. No.
I
will be like, you know what? I get it.
Did you at least empathize near the end? Did you at least kind of start to empathize?
I mean, you know who I empathized with? All the people who died because her and Arthur ran away together. Those
that did suck.
I empathize with, not her and her weird freaking ISIS sex cult.
She just got wrapped up in it, man. It was one thing led to another, and
get out of here.
What do you want? What do you want?
The problem is that Guinevere knew exactly what she was doing. Now, in her
That's
defense, she was doomed. Like, she did what she had to do to make a life for herself that was better than what she was going to get. And you know what? Mad props. That doesn't mean I have to like you. I don't have to like you. Good for you.
And she was right. She was as smart or smarter and braver and, bolder than so many of those men.
Oh, yeah.
And this is the only way that she knew she could get the power that she did deserve. Like,
she's brilliant. She knew exactly what she was doing.
She was a great character. Like, I hated her at the beginning too, but she was a great character.
I agree. I hated her.
That was a good arc.
I agree.
Yeah.
Let me check. Hold on. Let me check some of these things. Yeah. So definitely better under the Romans as far as people being attacked. Yes, Albert, absolutely. Derval and Arthur it's hero worship that converts into buddies. Yes, the nut god's here. No, I understand that. I know that's realistic. I understand it's realistic. People do crap all the time. Usually people don't have the fate of Britannia on their shoulders of this.
Yeah.
And then, because that now all we got to listen to is the back freaking 25% is Gorfithid. You and your whore! Your whore! Seriously, where's the lie? Did y'all listen to it? Where's the lie? Isn't it true?
That did happen. That is factual. Yeah.
I don't know anything else he said the rest of the book.
You need to narrate audiobooks. You have to. I'm upset that you don't.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
Or just keep imitating audiobook narrators.
Y'all know. I'm like Gorfithid. Like I kept thinking he was gonna stop. Nope. No, you tell your whore to get out here.
Yeah, he was pissed.
Dude.
Oh,
Sometimes he said Arthur's whore if he talked to Durham.
Oh yeah.
He mixed it up
Right.
sometimes.
There is a person who is not. Whoo, all right. You know who Gorfithid is? Gorfithid is the incels online who asked a girl out and they told them no, and now it's like, well, I don't even like you anyway, you. Like, sorry, weeb. Go back to your video games, bud.
Oh my god, that's funny. Jeez.
So yes, I agree. Like, she's a fantastic character because Cornwell,
she's
he
amazing.
writes such amazing character. I hate her.
Yeah.
Like, I can acknowledge she's a fantastic character, and I hate her.
Then he's done his job, I think.
I feel like
Right?
she's
100%.
for me I couldn't help but think of A Song of Ice and Fire a little bit because for me she was kind of like a Cersei Lannister. It's like who was actually one of my favorite characters of all time. It's like Cersei's awful, but man, I cannot get enough of her, and I just find her fascinating.
Yeah, she's a Cersei without the benefit of the noble birth.
Yeah,
Right? Because she's like, she's not noble. Is Guinevere noble? She's second daughter. Like, isn't she?
something like that.
She's like minor nobility.
She was
right?
right. She was like mid.
Yeah.
She was mid.
Very mid.
Because who was Guinevere promised to start with? Do we remember?
She was.
I can't remember the guy's name.
Oh no, it was Guinevere's. Wasn't Guinevere's sister promised to Arthur? Isn't that what he was going to do? Like, is that what was going to happen?
I thought initially
Guinevere was
Kynwyn,
Guinevere was
you're right.
betrothed to someone else.
Kynwyn.
Yeah.
because poor Kynwyn just got bopped along. Like
Oh,
she
poor
was betrothed
Kynwyn.
to everybody.
Poor Guinevere's ugly older sister. Like,
I know.
felt so bad for her.
Oh, poor lady.
Ah, yes. We'll talk about that. So,
Yeah.
does anybody else
Yeah.
have any thoughts about Arthur and Guinevere's thing upsetting the thing? We're in Winter King right now, so anything else?
We haven't talked about Gunlius. I mean, he's also very hateable.
About who?
Gunlius, is that his name?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The one that,
Who was
'cause
that
he's the
again?
one who hurts
Hermione?
Mooey
Isn't he
at
the dude
beginning.
who like raids Merlin's place?
He's the
Right.
one who
Oh.
kills, or he tries to kill Mordred, isn't he? He's the one who goes there to
Oh,
get
yeah.
baby Mordred and then gets the
Right.
wrong baby.
Right.
But then
and things
he kills Mordred's mother.
Yes, kills because
Right,
they were supposed they were married. So he
Yeah.
goes, kills
He's the
her.
one that
Oh,
sets
that
fire
was-
to Merlin's stronghold, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
And
that guy's
Yeah, he came and blew everything up. Yeah. That's right. That's right.
Unlius. There you go.
there we
Yeah,
go,
screw
Gunlius.
that
He's
guy.
the one who Nimue had
Yeah.
the like revenge plot against.
Mhm.
Yes, that was so good.
Okay.
Oh, that was.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about Nimue in a second. That's what it was. Guinevere was the daughter of an exiled king.
Mm.
That's
Right.
what it was.
Right.
That's why she
Yeah.
she didn't have any
Worse than mid. Yeah.
yeah. Oh man, there's so many great characters. I didn't like Nimue either. She's an excellent character. Like Nimue holds a grudge better than I do.
Yes, she
Just
does
barely.
actually.
Yeah.
She actually does
Like that-
win.
she takes eye for an eye too.
Yeah, and I almost feel bad for Nimue because isn't Nimue like hardcore in love with Merlin? Like, isn't she?
Yeah. I
And
mean,
Merlin,
Yeah.
I mean, she kind of has like hero worship of Merlin the way that Durval
Right.
does of Arthur, but Merlin doesn't really like Merlin. The way
Merlin's
Merlin
interesting
treats
in
his
these books.
apprentices. Merlin is.
Who
I
are
love
children?
Merlin.
Like Nimue is a literal child. When
Yeah.
we first
I was kind of
meet
shocked
her.
when I was reading that because I don't have a basis on which to sort of compare Merlin's character, right?
Oh, that's
and
right.
so, in other than the Sword and the Stone,
oh, that's right.
but I was like, oh my god, like this is Merlin? That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, that corruption arc, absolutely, like absolutely, like. But
Yeah.
Merlin is such an interesting character because he loves Arthur, but not in the way we're taught.
Low
that he
key.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah. He loves Arthur, but not more than he loves the idea of bringing the old gods back to Britain that the
Yes.
freaking
Right.
Romans chased off. And the whole time, I'm like, you're going to sacrifice Arthur. Like, you are going to ditch your boy
Yeah.
for. and he's mean. Oh, Derval, don't be ridiculous, Derval.
And he loves Derval.
Such a
He
good-
really loves Derval.
He does
but-
love Derval, but is mean to him. Oh, you're being a woman, Derval.
Totally.
Like,
Yeah.
Merlin, simmer down.
Well, you like us, and you're mean to everybody, so
And
it's,
Nemo's
you can
like
see
that,
where that.
you know what
Yeah,
I mean?
Christina, don't laugh at that.
you can like someone and still be kind of a dick. So.
That's definitely true. I wouldn't abandon y'all to.
But it's charming.
Crap. So thoughts on you guys? Thoughts on Nimue, or Nimue, or Merlin? You guys.
I just love how condescending they are too. Like they're so condescending. They're just like, "Oh, you're such a simple boy. You're not very clever."
Merlin's dialogue, like I was laughing out loud at some of
Yeah.
his dialogue, super funny, and that caught me off guard. I didn't
know.
expect that to be
I
so
love
good. And
the
of course,
humor. Yeah.
Jonathan Keeble narrating as Merlin was like perfect,
So good.
so good. Yeah,
So good. He's such a good. This is such a good Merlin, and so different. I love. So Merlin is my favorite character too,
Okay.
Johanna. So and my favorite Arthurian series prior to reading this one, and I still don't know which one I prefer because it's been a really long time since I read the other one. Is Mary Stewart's Arthurian series, which is about Merlin. So
is
you
it
follow
these
Merlin
ones?
from the
My
time
mother-in-law
he's a young
just
boy.
gave me these.
Yes.
Oh, I need to
Nice.
read those. Yeah.
So-
She's like,
so
"Oh, you like
good.
Arthur stuff? You're talking to your friends about Arthur. Like, check these out." I was like, "Okay,
Oh, how
cool."
funny.
So I was gonna
Yeah.
ask you guys about that. That's fantastic. Cool.
That's funny.
But a really
Yeah.
different Merlin. So I really like this one. It's a definitely a darker. I think who said it? Maybe Albert. Like terrifyingly pragmatic. Yes, that's a good way of describing Merlin
Yeah,
in this
yeah.
series.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
Very cool.
thoughts on Nimue in the first book before we talk
I
about her?
like the movie. I
Yeah.
like a good like revenge. I think that Albert.
I liked her too.
That she deserved her revenge, and I was
Yeah.
rooting for her to get it.
It's
Yes,
it's rare
I was
that
too.
I'm like scared by a character. Like I'm like, if I met this person, like I'd be terrified of this person
Does she
and
get?
what they
She
become.
gets her revenge on Gunlius at the end, right? They
Yes.
leave.
Oh,
They leave
yeah,
him
man.
in the house,
Yes.
Yeah.
and then she
and
goes
it
in
kind of
and
fades to black, I think. And
yeah,
you just that was
that's
cool.
good,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I didn't do any refresh.
I think my one little criticism actually of The Winter King would be, I mean, it was kind of like, aside from the things we already mentioned, is just I wanted more Merlin. I was a little disappointed I didn't get as much Merlin as I had hoped, though I think I had heard from everybody's reviews that he does come in later.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was so excited every time he was present. So excited.
Do you think there's a criticism where people want or expect more Arthur at the beginning? Do you think a lot of people drop it maybe because he's not really in?
Oh, I'm
like
sure.
obviously it pays off,
Probably.
but that's probably something that gets.
Oh
talked
yeah.
about. Yeah.
I would totally tease people. I'm like, you people who love to DNF books left and right, you're
Yeah.
gonna DNF it if you're not careful, because
Yeah.
that beginning is slow. I mean, it is a lot of setup in the beginning.
And I
Is
think
this the one? Is Winter King the one where they go to the Isle of the Dead, like where they put all of their people with?
No, that's Enemy of
That's-
God. I
that's
think.
Enemy of
Yeah.
God.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
so. I think a lot of it, like
Oh wait, is it? No, wait, is it?
no,
this one?
Isle of the Dead. He rescues Nimue in this one because it's searching
No, it
for
is
the
this
cauldron
one.
that's in.
I'm
that's
sorry,
in-
I was thinking of the cauldron.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
Cauldron.
that's kind of what I was thinking at the same time because it kind of takes place near that, isn't it?
Isle of the
like in
Dead is
that
at the
same
end.
area,
It's,
kinda?
it's like the
They blend. Yeah. I think
ultimate
you're
part.
right.
The
yeah,
fun
Isle of the
part.
Dead is Winter King. Okay, yeah.
So that part is also horrifying, and like in a way that you can understand.
Yeah, that was
because
totally.
I think about we have to do like a little bit of the history of psychiatry when in psychiatry. So you learn about the horrible things that we've done to people, you know, as recently as like 50 or 60 years ago. So when you think about this island just full of people who are unwell and need to be cared for, and they're just
Yeah.
left out there, like in the middle
Yeah.
of the ocean, it was horrible. I remember when Jimmy
Yeah.
was reading this, he actually sent me a message. He was like, I'm genuinely scared at this part. Like, this is really,
it felt like a
really
post-apocalyptic novel at that point where everybody's kind of like a zombie. Like it was
Yeah, you're gonna like jump out at you and stuff. Yeah.
seriously. It was so good. Like
Yeah.
and you know, I don't like I was so I think some of the difference of opinion we're going to have here. One, I think a lot of people. I think if you don't have any kind of like pre-knowledge of like Dark Age Britannia or like the Romans before it, I think it takes a lot of like acclimation of like the places and stuff like that. So it was easier for me to like get into it. But I like the stuff that deals with anything that deals with the druids and their that is my least favorite part of the books. So originally I originally I was corrected by as everyone else was reading, and I'm like, wait a minute, way cooler stuff happens in Enemy of God. But originally I said that Enemy of God wasn't my favorite because the entire first part is that quest for the cauldron, which I don't care about because I don't care about Merlin's stupid pot. I want like can we show Arthur and the fight for Britain instead of Merlin walking around like, you know, hoping that the wood spirit comes back? Like, Merlin, just go build a henge. Like,
I loved it. I loved
exactly.
that
So I think we're gonna have a different opinion.
Yeah.
I loved the stuff with Arthur and the political management of the armies, and is freaking Britannia gonna crumble more than I liked. Now they intersected,
Right.
but anytime we stopped with the political stuff to deal with the druidic, like, whoa, it was those were not my favorite parts.
I got a kick out of how he had Nimue pee on a spot to see which way the steam went to know where to go.
Yeah, that was cool.
Did you ever watch the Druid episode of DuckTales?
I used to watch DuckTales, but I don't remember that episode.
DuckTales was awesome. There's a druid episode?
There is a Druid episode because my kids watched it like years ago, and my son was terrified. So then he started thinking there were druids everywhere, and he'd be like, "Mom, are there druids?"
Yes, there are. I gotta watch that. That'd be awesome.
So I agree. The Derval-Kindwin relationship is fantastic. So any of those parts, I'm totally fine with. And yeah, it is a realistic portrayal. And I like that they're in a ton of danger. I just, it's frustrating to me because Arthur needs Merlin's help, and Merlin has abandoned him to look for this freaking iron laundry bowl that he thinks is one of the 7 artifacts of whatever. It's like, are we in a D&D game, Merlin? Like, what are we doing? And so I'm so frustrated because at this point I'm still Team Arthur, only because everyone else sucks way worse. So,
well, it goes back to what you said though, Alan, because Merlin's top priority is bringing back the gods and all that stuff. So while he loves Arthur and he's there for that and wants to help him and all that, I think he gives him Excalibur in this story, right? He kind of goes on his own way and goes, well, this is actually more important for now. So I'll get back to you when I get back to you. Right.
And I completely understand why, but I'm just frustrated. I'm like, Merlin, Arthur has gotten himself into crap from the first book. Will you please go help him?
I like the way Arthur reacts to it too. He's like, "Oh, the cauldron!" Like he just mocks it.
Yeah,
that would be me. I'd be like, "All right, Merlin, is there a spirit Halloween somewhere over in like?"
It was fun to read them close to the Faithful and the Fallen, though, because it was nice to see. Like, clearly, that is where John Gwynne got
100%. I read it close to Faithful and the Fallen, also.
I haven't read the Faithful and the Fallen, but after reading this, I have been really curious.
I'm doing a reread next year, and it's going to be one of the very few rereads I've ever done in my life. I want to get back to those. Yeah.
Real quick, on a pause, I forgot I had Christina bring me this.
Ooh.
That's a cool one.
Mass market paperback.
I have the edition that Theo has, but my 1,200-page MMPB, it's like a brick. I can punish people with this.
Yeah.
That's Alan's version of a sexy Shogun there.
Sexy Shogun, yeah.
Look at this print.
Oh, geez. Oh, my God.
Amazing.
It's so good. I love Shogun. And if we do end up reading it, we must. Someone needs to read Taipan with me. Please read Taipan with me. Like, no one will ever go on to Taipan, and Taipan is so good. Sorry. Anyway, moving. Where are we? Okay, so before we've moved into Enemy of God, but we have forgotten one important part of the Winter King, and this is when freaking Derval goes where Derval meets Merlin, and that is where we meet Lancelot.
Yes,
a librarian.
And I have forgotten. I have forgotten the genesis of Derval's distaste for Lancelot. Like, I forget the very first douchey thing that Lancelot does.
They were at the dinner or the banquet or something.
He calls him a child, doesn't he? Or...
Yeah, he was kind of just a bully and says some stuff.
Other people?
Lancelot's ability to manipulate people's perception of a situation, where he constantly is acting like he has convinced people that he is important, and yet will never take any actual role
or risk.
And he is so monstrously arrogant. He is a small, petty, vain man, and I hate everything about him. And because Derval won't take his crap, thank you, Derval, he makes a lifelong enemy of Lancelot.
Yeah.
And guys, Lancelot is incredibly despicable in this series. He just, and the problem is that everyone thinks he's the bee's knees.
That's the worst part. Like, the worst part is when people tell Derval to calm down, or tell him that he's wrong, or tell him that he's got to let it go. And I'm like, God.
Guys,
But you guys don't know. Yeah.
This is my life. This is my life where I am trying to tell people the truth. They're being hoodwinked. I'm like, guys, you know that person's a douchebag, right? Here is the list of douchey things that person has done. Oh, but no. Oh, because they're popular? Oh, you're right. Popularity does equal good person. You're right. No, forget it. I don't know what I'm talking about. I must be imagining it. Like, it is an emperor wears the emperor has no clothes scenario, and it hits way too close to home. Like in my personal life, and I'm like, I feel it for Derval. I'm like, why does no one see what a douchebag this guy is?
And
like,
Galahad, we get introduced to Galahad.
Galahad is BFFs.
Oh, I know. He's the best. I love him.
That was actually one of my favorite. Wow, there's so many. There's Kywin and
so
Derval.
Good. There's so
I
many
love
characters.
his relationship with Derval.
I know.
And I actually, this is going to be probably too much info, but I teared up at two parts. One we'll get to, and one where Derval and Galahad are kind of having a heart-to-heart, and he says, you know, we became the best of friends and we share everything except women, he says, which is whatever. But he just gets really, he just talks about his love for this guy that he's found, right, as friends. And I had a falling out with a really, really good friend of mine that I've been best friends with for like 15 years. I just was remembering some stuff, and I was like, man, like that friendship was like so good. The way it's described, the way it evolves very organically was just beautiful.
It's Galahad's fantastic. And
like it got to me. Yeah.
I forgot that Lancelot is a brilliant PR person, because I forgot he's paying the bards.
I was going to tell you that before.
Paying the
He
bards.
literally is.
I love how music plays such a significant role in history and
the poems and the songs.
Like,
he is having them write songs about his heroism, and the joke's on Derval. Lancelot's the one that Igraine believes is the hero, because you think Lancelot's paying the bards to write anything about Derval? Nope. If he is, it's a diss track. Instead, it's all that's like, Lancelot is amazing. Da-na-na-na-na. Lancelot is amazing. He's the hero that we need. Da-na-na-na-na-now.
We need that diss track. Yeah.
Just imagine Derval watching Lancelot row away from his burning home.
I know.
Staying behind to save his family, and then getting back to Britain, and everybody says that Lancelot has saved the day.
And then I was so mad.
Oh, well, I'm
so
like
mad.
wanting to jump ahead. I shouldn't say that.
We're going to
because it's just like the fact that Derval goes and does Arthur's duty there.
What he needs to do,
Yes.
And Lancelot is that stereotypical bully that is. He talks a big game as long as he has the support and resources on his side, right? So we see, like, when Lancelot is on, the anti-Arthur side, because he's a freaking turncoat piece of trash, this is the part that made me tear up, Theo. And he freaking kills Derval's, his daughter, right?
That's the second part. That's the second part that I cried.
Enemy of God.
That
we're an enemy of God now.
Oh, we are, okay.
Yeah, sorry. Keeble's narration.
I couldn't. Yeah.
Getting choked up as Derval. It was
He slowed down. He got real soft with it.
I just got chills. Like, it was.
Yeah, me too.
It was so moving. Like, how dare you?
I remember I was cooking and I was like at the counter and I was cutting something and I'm like crying. Like, I had to step away and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that I normally don't cry at books. I'll choke up, I'll tear a little bit, but I was like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And you even know it's coming.
Absolutely.
Like, you feel it's coming and it still hit, you know?
Yeah, it's coming. And
like, some shit's going down and it still just killed me. Yeah.
It is so good. Yeah. So we're an enemy of God now. So, Johanna, if you wanted to say something about this particular, I skipped over the cauldron. Sorry.
It's okay.
Alan hated it. It's done. Fuck it.
I'm trying to remember what I just thought it was infuriating that Arthur kept feeling like he owed, was Lancelot's father's name or something, because he wasn't there to fight that battle, but Derval's like,
because he had promised an alliance, but he couldn't because he's over here dealing with this nonsense.
Yeah.
So he sends Derval on his behalf.
But it all kind of boils back down. I think it kind of boils back down to Guinevere, right? Like
Probably.
he wouldn't have been tied up in the first
He was
place.
otherwise indisposed. Yeah.
It was just a big mess that kind of keeps going back to that one stupid mistake.
My face. So Austin's asking where it ranks among favorite historical fiction. So I have long ranked Shogun as my favorite historical fiction book. And then recently, now that I'm older and less into like samurai, I love samurai, but I'm obsessed with merchant houses. And I don't really know why. I think Taipan in my nostalgia brain has eclipsed Shogun. When I reread those, I will be able to tell you. But I am
cool.
Going to go out on a limb and say that I'm going to say that Warlord, and I never thought that I was going to replace Sharp in Cornwell's thing, because I love the India trilogy of Sharp so much. I think Warlord Chronicles may be my favorite historical fiction, like of all time. Like it may be my number one historical fiction. And again, I reserve the right to modify it when I reread Shogun and Taipan, because if anything's going to top it, it's going to be Shogun or Taipan. Theo, where do you rank it? Sarah, Johanna, I know you haven't read a ton of historical fiction.
I haven't read a ton of historical fiction, but I have said that honestly, I think that after Lord of the Rings, although some people consider Lord of the Rings a standalone anyway, I think this is my favorite trilogy of all time. It's kind of hard to weigh this between Farseer, which I also read this year. But honestly, I think it's my favorite because of the emotional range that I've experienced in this trilogy.
Oh, yeah.
Just the depth of friendships and the warlord spirit in battle. Like, I loved the battle scenes. I loved the religion. I loved all of those things. And I loved the betrayals. There's just so many incredible, exciting moments. And the way it made me feel, it just got me feeling so many things.
And real quick, shout out to Albert. I love when Albert's on the streams because
Yay.
Albert remembers everything. So whenever I'm on a stream and Albert has read the book, if I forget, Albert's got me. He's gonna let me know the thing that we forgot. So
Benwick, thank you.
You're filling in the details. Theo, you've read more historical fiction now, so where does it compare for you?
Yeah, it's still the best. I mean, I haven't read enough really to speak to that. I'll probably be able to compare more next year. But in terms of what I've read, it's probably one of my favorite series I've ever read. It's definitely the best series. It's some of the best books I've read this year. It's probably number 2. One of the books is probably number 2. And as a trilogy, it's probably my favorite. And that may or may not change, but I feel like because of the reasons Johanna mentioned, and what it's kind of opened me up as a reader too, and the audio experience as well. This is going to be top 3 for me, probably for a very long time.
For sure. Yeah. But Sarah, didn't you say that there's an Arthur series that you like better than Warlord? Did you say that?
So I don't know. I haven't read them for a long time, but that one's definitely historical fantasy. So there is fantasy in that one as opposed to this one. So I also really like historical fantasy, and it would be hard for me to rank them because there are a lot that I enjoy. But of this type of historical fiction, this is probably my favorite. I also I like a lot of random stuff. There's a historical fiction about ballerinas in France that I really like because I like France and I like ballet, but I'm going to compare that to the Warlord Chronicles. They're really different books. But
on that note, I was going to say John Gwynne is one of my favorite fantasy authors, and I could tell that inspiration that he's had on John Gwynne. And so that's another reason why I was fully, as a fantasy guy, was completely into this, completely.
Yeah. So why don't we have a historical fiction book club where we just read his
We've kind of started it. A lot of.
I have a question. I mean, this goes into book 3, but isn't this slightly fantasy.
Yeah, like a little bit.
I called it that a couple times, and
I
I sort of
know.
corrected myself, but I think there's an argument to be made for that.
Well, Goodreads does label this historical fantasy.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
Oh, really? Okay. I
Yeah.
can see that. Yeah. 100%.
you have to, like, with the magic, like, there are times where the magic is like, oh crap, I guess the magic's real.
Yeah.
But then we have Merlin
explained
in
away.
Dog and Pony Show, who's like, oh no,
Yeah.
no, that's just the lighting. Like, we make that
Right.
guy look like his. So
well, at first I was like, this is 100% fake magic. This is
Yeah.
all. But I love that. I love that it kept me guessing because I felt like I was like, it caught me off guard because I was like, I'm so used to fantasy making me automatically believe magic is real. And then when I read something like this,
Yeah.
I had to like almost retrain my brain, but is it real? And it's like almost put me in this like fantasy agnostic, I don't know, kind of place. But where was I going with that? The thing is though, there were certain things that, and I can't tell if it's just Dervil's perspective, that made me wonder about like some of the prophecies and omens. Like for example,
Right.
the prophecy that Nimue made about Lancelot, that a king will marry the dead or something like that. Albert, you can come up with that prophecy. But you know, there was something about something weird, and then a child will die, and then his child dies in book 2.
Yeah.
That whole prophecy comes true. And then there's also this idea about how Arthur always, the second he seems like he's going to be defeated is the second that he will win. And
Right.
so as much as it seems like this whole trilogy is demystifying the Arthur legend, there are certain ways I feel like he's sort of building the mystique of Arthur again.
Well, druids were, if I'm wrong, they were real in history, and there's a reason why people believe in that sort of thing, or at least did. Like, there's reasons to make it feel that way, where you're like, oh wow, like this is really happening, or that was, you know, really prophesized, or whatever. Like, there's a reason why that people kind of felt that way. So I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there was something else too. Yeah, I mean there was, and then of course book 3, there were some questionable things at the end of that. But I don't know. What do you think, Sarah? Do you think this is mostly just?
So this is a question that I thought about the whole time I was reading. Nimue and Dervil's connection is another part where it almost like threads.
Oh yeah, the
into
hand or whatever, right?
Fantastic when
Oh,
she
yeah.
cuts them and connects them. So I think I believe that there is no magic in the book, but I do see how he sets it up really well to make you feel as if the things that are happening are magical. I just find like all this stuff about omens really interesting anyway, because you could walk into a forest. I know someone talked about an owl earlier. And you could see an owl and it would mean nothing to you. But then you walk into a forest and you see an owl and something bad happens. You're like, of course, I saw the owl.
Damn owl, yeah.
And otherwise you might not even remember that you saw an owl. And like people still do those kinds of things, and people still place meaning on everyday occurrences because it fits what they want to believe. But back, you know, at this time where there's this big central conflict between like hugely opposing ideologies and there's all of that tension, it just kind of amplifies that so much, and it's interesting. I like it. So I don't know that I believe that there's magic in the series, but I can accept the argument.
I agree. I think I agree with Albert that Dervil believes in magic, and so there is. I'm sitting there. I'm in the bathroom, and I got the door open. I can hear y'all talking, and all I want to do is say something, but I'm over there in the bathroom. So I'm like, like I need to get out of the bathroom so I can come. Theo's talking about druids.
Don't take your mic into the bathroom.
That's what I mean. Is like, is Dervil a reliable narrator, and how that plays into whether magic is real or not. So I love that. I think that was so fascinating.
I think that's why I like the frame narrative so much, is because it was filtered through
that was one of the best parts of the books.
It's filtered through the perception of the narrator. And so everything isn't 100% reliable. But we end up forgetting, and we, you know, trust that it is.
But I also like what Sarah said too, because I mean, when we're in the Dark Ages, that was something else that came up in my mind, is like, or that really not necessarily that I creatively thought of, but I feel like Cornwell does a really good job of showing you what life is like at that time and what gods mean to these people at that time, how they really, you want something to believe in. So you believe in either gods, whether it's pagan gods or Christianity, or you believe in heroes like Arthur and Lancelot, even though he's not really a hero, but you know, the need to believe in something because life is so bleak and hard.
Yeah, and Theo, the Druids did exist, and the Romans hated them. Caesar the entire of Book 6 or much of Book 6 of Caesar's Gallic Wars is him dissing the Druids and talking about how much they suck and they don't write anything down because they want to hoard their knowledge. So literally, if you're a Druid in training, you got to sit there and listen to these people talk and memorize it because they refuse to write anything down. Yeah. You know, he's making fun of the Druids like, oh, they're people think they're mysterious because they like, you know, hoard their knowledge rather than letting anybody know. It's like he calls it a trick and calls them barbarians, and they believe in some, you know, nonsense. The Romans have no stock in the Druids, which is really why the old gods have been, you know, run out, because, you know, Romans are gonna stomp that. So we're still talking about the magic stuff. What about when doesn't the cauldron go missing and then things go wrong? Isn't that true? That something happens? Like, isn't that? Doesn't Merlin come back to life?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he basically does. Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
that's the biggest thing where I'm. The answer is no. No, he's completely right, Albert. That was the biggest thing where I was like,
yeah, Merlin was basically dead.
Yeah, I was like, I guess magic does exist because they put him in the cauldron, and then he came back to life when he was.
Yeah, there was no real explanation for that. Right, like, as far as I remember, that
what
kind of
coincidence,
just
Albert? Are you saying that he just kind of recovered from his illness, like at the same time, like at the exact? I don't know.
This is what Cornwell does, though. He does something like that, but then the next minute he talks about the scene around that same scene is when Derval is holding up Merlin's wand, and he's like, "For me, it was just holding up a wand, but Merlin seemed to think there was a lot of energy coming out of it, so."
Yeah, I guess.
And then he's like, you know,
and Nimue and her curse, and you know, he definitely makes you feel like it could be real. And I think, like you said, Johanna, we see a lot of how Derval interprets it, because Derval has this long-standing relationship with
Albert?
Nimue. Albert? I mean, Nimue was drugging him, so she was keeping him there, like giving him God knows what.
So that's true. So the really interesting thing about this series is listen to how much we have not talked about Arthur in a series that is about Arthur.
I know it's brilliant. It's crazy.
I know.
And me being fairly new to this Arthur stuff, like that's what was shocking. And actually, I was reluctant to pick it up. I mean, I basically picked it up right away after I heard everybody gush about it. But for a moment of hesitation, I was just like, yeah, but like Arthur's not really like, is this really where I should start? And I'm so glad I read them because it's just a different take and I can appreciate it for what it is.
Allow me to bring it back to Arthur, because another part of Enemy of God that I think Keeble is phenomenal in acting it is when Derval finally screams at that piece of trash because Arthur makes exceptions for himself and Guinevere, but has to kill Tristan and Isolde. And freaking Derval is like, are you kidding me?
He finally is like, yeah.
Like when
that was a good
I got
moment.
chills again. When Derval is enraged at Arthur and finally screams at him. We've had 2 books of him putting up with Arthur's crap.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating because Arthur could. That's what's the problem.
Yeah, he could step in.
Could let them go. He could. He did it for himself and Guinevere.
Yes. But the one time when there's a child's life at stake and a friendship, and that's the one time where you should break your code, you know?
Yeah. He already broke it for dumb reasons.
Mm-hmm.
My wife is making fun of my high voice.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. It just drives me nuts.
That part is so good.
And there were a few moments that in particular where things are almost never the same between Derval and Arthur again. Like I was really worried about where that relationship would end up actually. And it kind of comes back, but it never really goes back to normal, I don't think. He loses some respect there in that moment too. You know.
The writing in that scene is just
yeah.
That made me tear up. That definitely made me tear up. It was just
Theo, you're right. Like that is where my respect for Arthur was gone. Like I hated his stupid decision with Guinevere, but you know, like he's still Derval's buddy. But then I'm just like, Arthur,
yeah, what are you doing? Yeah,
screw you. I hope Mordred kills you. Like I'm
yeah, he's coming for you.
When does Mordred come in? Like, so Lancelot has so overshadowed Mordred for me that I forget all the stuff that Mordred does.
He's the
Mordred.
one who-
Mordred,
like
he was like
kills
running
everybody,
around.
isn't he? Like, and he goes there, and then Dervil has to come back over, and then gets captured.
I feel like Mordred comes like what specifically about Mordred? I'm sorry.
I don't remember what he does. I remember hating him, but I forget the things that he does that makes me hate him.
He
There's
was
a lot of
running
things-
around and raping and just
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I
running
don't like
around
that.
with his buddies being
Oh,
a
when he
dick.
was a kid, yeah. Piece of trash.
like being yeah. And then
And
later I
Dervil
think he was
slaps him because he like needs to keep him in order, and then Mordred hates him forever.
and then
and then doesn't Mordred but sorry, go ahead.
no, Arthur knows what an awful ruler Mordred is going to be.
Yeah,
He
and he's-
acknowledged it, and then he's like, I can't. It's my duty. I can't. Like, yes, you freaking can, Arthur. You have broken the rules once already. Mordred is awful. Why are you the way you are, Arthur? Oh, guys, I gotta listen. I gotta read the series again. Oh my gosh, like Arthur makes me so mad. Like,
Aren't his
doing
children also
Britannia.
awful? Like, aren't his kids, like his pre-existing
Arthur's
kids,
twins.
also horrible?
Oh, that's
Yes.
terrible too.
Kids are horrible.
You're talking about Arthur's kids, right? The
Yeah,
two
Yes.
but
twins.
Arthur has
Yeah.
no problem being a douche to them. Like,
No.
he's like,
So
no,
one
cut
of
his
the-
hand off.
One of the twins kills Dervil's daughter.
Yes, that's who kills Dervil's daughter.
Yeah, on
And then-
horseback or something.
It's Mordred, not Lancelot, who captures Dervil, right? He is the person who is holding him captive, or is that? I don't think it's
can't
Lancelot,
remember.
is it? Isn't it Mordred who keeps?
I don't think it's Lancelot either.
It's
I think
Lancelot, but it's Lancelot who initiates the attack on Dervil's household, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, I thought the
I
twins
can't
were
remember.
acting at Lancelot's behest because they had sided with Lancelot over
I think
Yes.
well they were.
Yes,
they
that's
were.
correct.
It's just Lancelot was never around because he's a pussy. So sorry, I hate that word.
He
Sorry.
yeah, he sends the sons out to do his work,
Yeah.
do his dirty work.
Yeah, he's like
He never does
And didn't-
anything. Yeah.
Didn't Mordred like sorry, I'm not remembering, but didn't
You're good.
Mordred kind of betray didn't he like rat out where that thing was hidden in the hole in the chapel or
Yes.
something? And he was the one that was like, "Oh yeah, like we'll just escape or just take out this stuff." I can't remember what happened there. I'm blanking on
Mordred
that, but
is awful. Like,
yeah,
He
he was a little
was-
rat.
Yeah, wasn't he conspiring with the other
conspiring.
woman that Arthur was going to marry? That was in book 3. I'm sorry.
no, we're fine. We're in book 3 now.
Yeah.
We're good.
Well, we didn't talk about the end of book 2 though.
Oh, go ahead, do it.
So, what did you all think about that crazy ISIS cult?
Oh, I was going to ask, is that in Enemy of God or is
Yes.
it? Okay,
the end.
when
You're
I
just waiting for it to
finally,
happen.
I finally cheered when Arthur finally does something
Yeah, he's like,
about this wretched woman. Like, he has and he finally walks in there, and finally he can't be like, oh no, that's
no,
not
until it was in his face, it was in denial the whole time, right?
but his actions after that, where he just like stone faced,
He turns his back. Yeah, that was
like-
fun. That
Wasn't that
was
awesome?
cool.
I don't know. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that I love that so much, but I did.
Yeah, because we were prepped to hate her so much, right? It
Yeah.
just felt so good. Yeah.
This, oh my gosh, I forgot about this, Albert. The fact that he
Cult of Mithras.
lets freaking Lancelot in because
Yeah,
Guinevere
I
was
was
like,
pissed.
let Lancelot in. No, Lancelot
Yeah, and-
sucks.
And Dervil's like, dude, he doesn't deserve to, like, why? He's
I
like,
love
it's fine.
that. That's Dervil's line in the sand. He's like, all this other crap with Lancelot,
Yeah.
he's not joining the
Yeah,
Warrior
this
Brotherhood.
is sacred. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
the thing,
exactly.
and the thing I love about what Bernard Cornwell does is like, I mean, it's not even subtle foreshadowing. Like, there are conversations early on in Enemy of God where, I mean, like, Merlin is strongly hinting that Lancelot and Guinevere are getting it on, and that there's some really kinky stuff happening with this whole ISIS cult, and the women.
Yeah. Yeah.
and Guinevere's sister talks about the moon roof or sun roof or whatever where people get in, and so
Yeah.
I don't know, like the whole time that he's saying this, like I'm so used to fantasy where the author will kind of like hint at something and get your mind going somewhat place, but then do something totally different than what you're expecting, like play with your expectations. But Bernard Cornwell, he's like, no, I'm going to give you exactly what you're expecting, but I'm going to give it to you with all of the fireworks, like all of the.
I think the whole point is
spectacles
how
and-
obvious it is, and Arthur still refuses to believe it. Like
doesn't
everyone
know.
else freaking knows.
I just loved it.
And you do still feel that dread, like when Arthur's walking up to the room and he's about to go in. You're like, oh god.
My heart
this
was
is
like
gonna
pounding.
suck.
I'm like, oh god, yeah.
Why does he go there? Who tips him off? Like, is it Derval? Like,
Is it one of your sisters, the one who like
Oh,
tries to orchestrate it, isn't it?
That's
She's the
right.
one who sets it all up.
Well, because they realize that Lancelot has betrayed them, but I think that Arthur is so committed to Guinevere. He's like, I have to save Guinevere. I have to save her. And so Derval decides, like, okay, I guess I'll help you. So he takes on the tip. I think it was originally, it might have even been Morgan might have even had some part of that.
Maybe.
But anyway, he gets tipped
that's-
off by Guinevere's sister in the end, and that's how they get in. And first Arthur goes and saves the kids first, and then Nimue disrupts the whole ceremony.
Mhm.
That was just wild. Like
It was wild.
I could not believe he went there, but he just went there.
It was so good.
Yeah.
It was excellent.
And then book 3 is mostly versus the Saxons, where Sagramore is the man. Sagramore
was so good. He
He's
was
like-
such a good
Sagramore. I
character.
wanted more Sagramore in the
Me too.
trilogy.
He is
like the
Arthur's
general.
Parmenion, the same way that
Yeah, right.
like the general Philip's like #1 general, the guy that's like, you send, gonna do the job, gonna do it well, but doesn't get like any of the hyper credit. Someone when we were talking about it somehow, and someone said Sagramore should be played by Idris Elba in the show coming out. He'd be so good. He'd be so good. So I think I liked this one the least because I don't care about the Saxon Wars is the problem. But I do like, let me tell you what I do like. Derval finding Lancelot in the brambles, having nothing, like running away, stuck in the freaking, hiding in the brambles. And doesn't Derval murks the crap out of him, right? Like, am I just imagining that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Like,
But then he just leaves him there to die, doesn't he? Like he doesn't even finish the job.
oh, is he bleeding and dying?
I can't remember. I think
Albert's got us. Albert, how does
Albert, let
Lancelot
us
die?
know. But I feel like he's on the cusp of death, but then Derval just walks away from him maybe, and it's just like, you're not even worth my time. I think.
Oh yeah, maybe he gets killed by a Saxon or something. Albert's going to tell us in a second. But
Thank you, Albert.
like, Lancelot's ignominious end brought me great joy. It
Perfect.
brought me like that. Finally got his comeuppance, you piece of trash. Now the Bannon. Oh, they did hang him.
Hang him?
Yes, dance, Lancelot, dance.
Maybe that's what it
Why
was.
don't I
Derval
remember
didn't get
that?
a chance to do it
I don't know
himself.
why I don't either. I'm
thought-
drawing a blank.
Like
I was silent because I was thinking that they killed him, but I couldn't for the life of me remember how. So I'm like, well, that obviously didn't happen.
I was just in
I was
some.
waiting for
Yeah.
all book 3 was to find out how Derval converted and how Derval lost his
Yeah.
like
Yes.
that was like the thing that was pulling me through. That was my ultimate reveal for book 3. That's what I wanted to know.
oh, even freaking even Albert drew a blank. Let me find Excalibur here. There we go. I got it.
I think I for some reason book 3 didn't stay in my memory.
Yeah, okay. So Lancelot's caught trying to flee the rout. Derval forces him to accept a challenge to single combat. Despite his cowardice, Lancelot proves to be a competent swordsman, but Derval defeats him anyway and has him hanged from a tree.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yes, that's right. I remember the battle, and then I thought he just let him go, and that's why I was like, well, that. But I was more happy when I read that, so he must have killed him. But I don't remember him killing him like in the duel, so that makes sense.
Can someone tell me? So earlier we talked about how Guinevere kind of redeems herself in the Baden battle. Most of that has fled my mind. Can someone fill me in on that big battle? This is the one that Lancelot's running away from. of
Oh
course.
yeah, her
Yeah.
brilliant
Wagons,
ideas.
doesn't it? She does something with the wagons.
Yes, she
Doesn't
like
she light them on fire or something and like rolls them
down
down
the
the
hill?
hill or something? I
Yes.
can't remember. Something like that, where it was just
Yeah.
a brilliant strategic move that that Arthur was like, man, I wish or Derval was
Oh,
like,
that's
I
right.
would've
Yeah,
thought
She
of
built
that."
like a makeshift tank or something.
Yeah, she refuses to sit
Yeah.
there and do nothing. She refuses to sit there and
Yeah.
do nothing and actually participates.
Because they have to
Yeah.
buy time until someone can arrive, right? And
Yeah.
and they're surrounded and they're trying to come up with things to do, and she comes up with this idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did come around to caring about her, and
I did too. I
Ah.
empathized a lot near the end. And surprisingly so, because I was like, there's no way I'm gonna like this bitch. Like, there's no way. But then it
I
happened.
know.
Yeah, it happened.
I
So-
maintained that. I was like, no. I'm like, okay, good. I'm glad you're atoning for this. Good.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna like you because guess what? You've destroyed Britannia. You
owed us this. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, sorry. Like, I'm not gonna applaud you for having basic human decency and doing the right thing. Like, you don't get a pat on the back for doing for not screwing people over.
I think it's her
Wow.
conversation. I liked because I think it might be when her and Derval, because he's the one who goes to visit her when she's in isolation,
Yeah.
right?
They
So when
have
she's
some
locked in the
heart-to-hearts,
tower,
Yeah.
he feels like it's his duty to Arthur to make sure that she doesn't actually die there, because he knows that
Right.
he loves her, but that his honor prevents him from doing
Right.
anything about it. And they have the conversation about ambition and what her life was like and being dictated, by other men. And I think that's when I had the most empathy for her. Like,
Yeah.
Cornwell makes you recognize how difficult her life was and how she had to use what was available to her in order to
Yeah.
get what she wanted. And the tools that she
Yeah.
had were limited. Like, no one was going
Yeah.
to listen to her in terms of battle strategy or anything else. Like, her value was as a wife to an important man.
Yeah, and it was interesting how she said over and over again that she didn't want to be worshipped. So in a way, she didn't want. It was so ironic
Mm-hmm.
the way that relationship worked out, because all Arthur wanted was for them to have a simple farm life and for him to be a blacksmith and for her to just be happy and content
Yeah.
with him in this simple life. And she wanted to make a king. And she
And
didn't
how
want
do
to
you
be
know
worshipped.
your wife so poorly? Like, everyone tells Arthur this the whole time, and he's off in fantasy land, being like, all she wants is to be happy with me. She does not. Like, she does not want that. There's not one part of her that wants
And
that.
the funny thing is, he wants to give up his power and his leadership to give her that. And what she wants is for him to take on the evil.
Right.
She does not want Arthur's cows. Like, she does not want your stupid dude ranch, Arthur. He's like, no, we're gonna retire and we'll open we'll have like a petting zoo and people will be able to ride the ponies around and we'll lasso like hay bales. And she's like, no, you should be king. And even Derval's like, dude, I don't like this lady, but you should be king because Mordred. And he's like, no, all she wants, we're going to retire to the country and it'll be Arthur.
Yeah.
No. Take the throne. What are you doing? You dummy.
Yeah.
And okay,
The reluctant king. Yeah.
I forgot why I hate Nimue. Freaking Nimue curses.
Oh, she's the
Derval's wife.
worst.
Yes,
Tywin.
Tywin. She gives her like
Oh,
all the
yeah.
pustules and like
Oh, that was
fevers.
gross.
Why?
Yeah.
Like, is it because she's trying to get Excalibur? Is that why?
She wants.
She says, "Oh yeah, if she'll only remove it if Derval gives because she's got to kill Arthur's son. Remember, like
Yeah.
Right,
part of
right.
the
She's
ritual or
right.
whatever. So
Yeah.
he'll own like Nimue. Derval is your friend. What are you doing?
Mhm.
Like we just got rid of this douchebag Lancelot, and now now freaking Nimue's betraying him.
Yes. Yep. And again, like the
Yeah.
whole time that everything is happening, like when Derval gets captured, when he's tied up, the whole time I'm like, okay, now it's gonna happen. He's gonna lose his hand. And finally, it's because of the curse, right? Doesn't he chop off his hand to sever his connection to
Yeah.
Nimue? Because it's the
Yes.
hand that she cut. And when it happens, you're like,
Yeah.
it happened.
Does Nimue kill Merlin? How did I forget that?
She like sends, and then he like bobs off in the ocean, doesn't he? Or is that?
Nimue?
That sounds right. Something like that. There was
Kills
some.
Merlin as a sacrifice to the sea god, Manowar,
Yeah.
to destroy the fleet.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
What?
She's
that's
crazy.
Yeah, she's not. She
really
was terrifying. I
Can't
told you.
kill
Yeah.
Merlin?
I know. That was
I hate
awful.
her. I hate Nimue. Nimue sucks. Yeah, I think I remember the third book the least of the three, which is
I most vividly remember the end, like when the ship is sailing away and Derval jumps off, and then Kynwyn jumps off, or Derval decides not to get on the ship, and Arthur's
Watches
body
him
is
sail
getting
away.
carried away, and oh man, I don't know, that just, and then Galahad is there.
You know what we also haven't talked about, but that
Sorry,
brought
go
out
ahead. Yeah.
such extreme feelings? Bishop Sansom. Like,
Oh,
I
man.
hated him the whole
He
time.
was
And
so-
you know that he has control over Derval in the end. You're like, how did you get to a point where this man runs your life and you have to listen to him? And trying to figure out where he gets that from is just...
Sansom is just an opportunistic toady.
Oh yeah.
Like
He just kept coming back, and then he would disappear and come back. And like,
You can't get rid
out
of
of
him.
here. Yeah.
And the problem is that Arthur didn't kill him while he had the power to do so, and then he ingratiated himself with Mordred, and then couldn't do anything.
Right.
Or like with Lancelot, he kept being on the opposite side of Arthur, and then he couldn't do anything. Freaking little toady. The fact that Sansom's alive at the end and has power over Derval makes me so mad.
I know.
Because he's just like, we have this contrast between, we've got the old gods, and then we've got, you know, the remnants of the gods of Rome, and then we've got the new god of Christianity, right? And they're constantly warring. And you see that some of the Christians like believe it and are, you know, believers. And then you've got Sansom, who doesn't believe a word of it. He just needs his church to be
all the buried money. Like, he knows where all the treasure is buried.
What did you all think of Morgan? We didn't talk about Morgan too.
Morgan, she's got the mask, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
she was the one.
she's
Yeah,
burned,
yeah.
right?
I mean,
His half sister.
Christian.
The problem is there are so many good characters in this book.
There's so many.
Like Morgan just got I don't even know she did. Like, I don't even know
She
she
gets
did.
overshadowed by Numui a lot. She's
She does.
definitely the priestess who gets pushed. to
She
the
hates
front.
Nimue, right? Didn't she used to be Merlin?
Yeah, because she got replaced.
she got traded in for the new model. Gross.
Yeah.
But then she ends up marrying Sansom.
Samson.
Yes.
He converts to
Yeah.
Christianity.
Christian.
Yeah.
I really loved the part where she actually saves Kynwyn. Actually,
Yeah,
She
she
does.
Oh,
he's the one who figures it out. Figures out that it's his scar on his hand.
Mhm.
But I love her. I loved her in those scenes. Honestly, she was just angry. She's an angry old crone, but I loved her.
Yeah.
You know who should play
What-
Sansom in the show? The guy who played Peter Pettigrew. That guy. That should be Sansom.
That would be
You know,
perfect.
that's
Little-
pretty
little
good.
toady.
Yeah,
Just a little
Pretty
toady.
good.
little rat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I hate that guy.
For the people that are more like the people that have read more Arthurian stuff, like there's a part, because I've read up a little bit about it since, and there's a bunch of different stories that I want to try. But there's a Lady of the Lake, right?
That would be
And-
Nimue, right? Isn't that
That
what
is
Nimue?
Nimue, yeah. And in some stories, I think it's two people, like Vivian and
Hold on.
and Nimue.
Is there a lady in the lake in these books?
No, but
No,
at the
but I
end,
think Nimue's character is based on the lady.
Oh,
right. But then at the end, Derval throws Excalibur into the water, and it just felt like kind of a full circle type of thing, because
Is Excalibur
that's
magic?
kind of where Excalibur comes from. Excalibur came from the Lady of the Lake in some of the stories,
Oh,
Yeah.
so it's interesting that it returns to the water,
That's
and that was
cool.
kind of cool. Yeah,
And
Is
that
it-
does happen in other adaptations. So the Merlin show, I think that has Martin Short in it. I think they throw Excalibur into the lake at the end of that one as well, and the Lady of the Lake comes back and reclaims it. Is it
Right.
was it a miniseries or a movie? I can't remember
I think it was a series, but I never saw
what
it.
it was. But
Also, do you know one thing that I also found out not that long ago that I thought was really cool and makes me want to read The Dark Tower even more? That I guess Roland and the gunslingers are descendants of Arthur, and
They
that
are.
his guns are made from the metal of Excalibur. And I was like,
I know.
what?
I forgot that, but yeah.
That's gangster. Like, I want to read that so bad. Not because of that, but I was just like, wow, that is very cool, like lore, right?
What you
Yeah.
guys? What did you guys think? I forgot that Derval's dad was Il,
Yes.
the Saxon king.
Oh,
The
yes.
Saxon king. Yes.
Yeah.
I
That
got
was really.
emotional.
Did you guys? There were a couple little twists like that, and they weren't like crazy, but I just felt like they worked for the story, and I wasn't. Yeah, I like that. I don't know.
And there's a big duel,
And their
right? Because in
interactions
order
was
to even
great.
talk to him, Derval has to win a duel against one of their warriors, right?
Yeah, they're best or something. Yeah.
Yeah, that part was awesome too. I remember.
I did not get this. I did not get that he was charismatic, Albert. I got that he was just a little toady.
No,
That-
I
Well,
didn't get that.
charisma
that's
doesn't
so-
have to mean likable. Charisma can be, I mean, you can be charismatic and still be kind of a dick. And I feel like, well, so I can see it, but yeah, that's not the first word that comes to my mind.
I just
But
don't like.
I understand.
I
Where he's
don't
coming
ever think that anything Sansom says is convincing of anything. I think people just. I think he
He's
just
just
has
slimy.
power, and he is a tool for people to use, and he is happy to be used as long as he stays fed.
Yeah,
Rich
away from the
and
from the
powerful.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember
Rush
discovering how Howlbane was spelled, Alan?
Uh,
The sword.
I don't
Oh, the
remember how it's
sword?
spelled, but I know it's not spelled. Hold on.
It's like
Um,
HW or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like
Okay.
Highwell.
Right. Yeah.
Because I remember listening to that, I was like, Howlbane? What's that? I reopened up the book. I was like, whoa, that's how that's spelled.
I'm looking it up.
But you know who wasn't charismatic was
It's
Mordred.
Highwell Bane. It's Highwell Bane.
Yeah.
Who
Right.
wasn't charismatic?
Mordred
Mordred.
was not charismatic.
Get out of here, freaking. Ugh. I hate
The
Mordred.
worst.
Anyway, do we have any closing, like, final thoughts on this? Is such a good series. Someone had asked something about how it ranks up there with other.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
Alan. Yeah.
Here.
There.
How does it rank against classic Arthurian legend? So I don't actually like classic Arthurian legend. I like the stuff that is more. I like this Dark Age Arthur as a warlord rather than the other stuff. This is my favorite, like Arthurian story, other than Sword in the Stone, which is Disney and fun. But I think Sarah has read the most of it, so you can speak to it more than I can.
Yeah, it depends on what you're looking for. So Jack White has a really long more historical leaning Arthurian series. There's a couple of standalones. One that I really liked was Fire Lord, which is, it talks more about like the Picts and their role in this part of British history. But I think Warlord is the best of the historical retellings. I think it ranks up there really highly with all of them. If you want something that's going to give you like the classic legend, this is not it. This is a good counterpoint to that, but I still think it's a fine place to start because it's just an excellent story. But I still think I've read a lot, and this is one of the very, very best.
Sarah, have you read the Giles Christian stuff, Lancelot?
I haven't,
and
so I have
Camelot?
Lancelot upstairs.
I really want to read
and
those
I do
next.
want to
I
read
think.
it,
Yeah.
but I have not, and I think I just needed a break from this one before I
Yeah.
could read one where Lancelot is the hero.
No.
I have read, so Alan, the reason Alan hates Lancelot, I think, is very understandable. I have read one retelling where it's a modern retelling where there is a polyamorous relationship between the three of them. So Arthur and Guinevere and Lancelot are all together. And they all love each other. So there's no betrayal of anyone.
Interesting.
That's interesting.
Well, what's the fun when everyone's all happy and everyone gets what they want? What the
Alan-
hell is that all about?
I love your frown, Alan.
I don't like that either.
Love doesn't exist.
I like. Look,
I just read The Child Thief by Brom, which has a lot of Arthurian lore in it. It's a Peter Pan retelling with Arthurian lore, and it's really cool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's a really
Cool.
dark.
I was going
Very
to say,
dark,
scary.
Peter
Doesn't
Pan
that person
retelling.
write scary books?
Yeah.
Doesn't that person write scary books?
Yeah, it is. It's really dark. It's like a horror fantasy.
so the main Arthurian lore that anybody needs to know is that Lancelot sucks, and so that's the most important takeaway, really. Anything that casts Lancelot in anything but a despicable light.
Who would you cast?
fantasy.
I'm terrible at these because I don't remember actors' names. But who would you
Yeah.
cast? What's your head canon for?
Who's this?
No,
Lancelot?
it's got. It has to be someone with a punchable face. Like it's got to be
a
someone.
beautiful punchable face.
Yes,
punchable.
like someone.
Yes.
Like I know a bunch of people in real life, because they're like arrogant douchebags.
Don't say names. People
know
will
how
watch this.
I will never do that. But I don't know who would play Lancelot. I don't know any of these young.
Oh, that
actors.
Albert's. That's a Charlie Hunnam.
I don't know what that is.
He's from
Yeah.
Sons of Anarchy, right?
I don't know what that is either.
Oh, come
The
on.
motorcycle show.
Yes, he's the.
Do I look
he's
like
the-
someone who watches motorcycle shows?
I
What-
haven't
what-
watched
Albert,
it either.
what
but
else
I
is he
know
in?
it's like Jeopardy, Alan. You just have to have heard of it. You don't have to have
Oh,
watched
I have. It's on FX,
Okay,
but I don't.
Let's see what else he's in. That's a very good Albert. That's a very good casting. I would think.
This is what they were just talking about, Francois.
Yeah, so
Is
we have
Josh
now.
Christian's Lancelot.
I was
So-
Timothy, no, y'all can't all like Timothy Chalamet can't be in everything, guys.
No, not well. He.
I
could
don't know
be,
actors
but-
at all, so I feel
I
like
feel
I'm
like
gonna look
Timothy
this up.
Chalamet could play the kid who got sacrificed in the cauldron.
Yeah. And actually, Charlie Hunnam played. He was in the movie King Arthur, Legend of King Arthur, or something. I can't remember. Like a couple years ago.
I can imagine wanting to punch Ryan Reynolds in the face repeatedly. Smug
yeah.
piece of crap.
I wonder if he played Lancelot in that. I should probably look that up.
Who would y'all
Who did he play?
who would y'all cast as Arthur?
Um,
And then Dervil. Let's do Dervil too.
Who would Timothy Chalamet be? Which
I said
character?
he should be that kid who got sacrificed by Merlin, the one that they like,
Oh, the beautiful one, yeah.
that beautiful kid, and then
Yeah.
You mean
Yeah.
Gawain?
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
Oh man,
Yeah, wasn't he a knight in another story? Wasn't
Gawain
he
and
one
the
of the
Green Knight.
knights
In the Green Knight, yeah,
of the? Oh,
it's a
okay,
really
cool.
good story. Yeah,
Okay, cool.
there's a Tolkien version too.
Really? Okay,
Mhm.
cool.
Who's
Yeah,
a funny old guy for Merlin?
For Merlin,
Oh, I don't know.
someone can be mean.
These are so fun to cast. They should really. Oh yeah, they are making a
more
series, aren't they?
actors.
Of the Winter
Yeah.
Knight. Or the
Dang.
Winter King.
I don't look. I just saw Matt Smith. All I know is that I've now put David Tennant in this show, so I got to figure out where I'm going to put David Tennant, because he is definitely going to be in this show. Because David Tennant.
Well, I think he could be Gorfithid because we can put him in. I can see him yelling that out. I don't know.
You can
He
see
was-
David Tennant. You can see Dr. Ten screaming, "You whore!"
He
feels like he has a
Jones.
face.
He was a really creepy villain in the first season of Jessica Jones. So I feel,
Jeremy-
I feel like he could. I think
Jeremy
he could do
Irons should be Gorfithid. He's mean.
that. That would also work well.
Anyway.
That is hilarious.
So, guys in the chat, go ahead and give us your Dreamcast for or in the Peter Capaldi would be so good as Merlin. He's
I
mean.
looked up.
He's
Dang
mean
it.
all the time. I love Peter.
Peter Capaldi.
Peter Capaldi would be great.
He was Dr. 13. He was the 12th Doctor. Sorry, I loved him as.
There we go. We can bring in
Ooh.
Dr. Nine for one of the mean nobles
I could
then. Let's just
see
get
it.
all the doctors in here.
I could see it. That's fun.
Oh, look,
Dang it. I can't wait to see this adaptation. There is definitely going to be an adaptation, or is it just?
they've started. man.
Apparently, it started. Yeah.
But I am dreading. They don't have the cast out yet, and I am terrified because here's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, none of these adaptations that have come out in the recent years, like, I mean, House of the Dragon, everybody likes. That's fine.
Yeah.
But like these two Lord of the
A lot haven't worked.
This Lord of the Rings, Wheel of Time.
This isn't
think about the
Amazon,
budgets.
right? Amazon is not adapting.
No, it's like
Or
it's in the
BBC.
UK, I think.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
BBC something.
Is it really?
It's
That
something
gives it a
like
step
that.
up already.
But I want guys. I want it to be good so bad. Like they're gonna mess
But the nice
it up.
thing is, Alan, even if it's not good, you still have these beautiful books and the audiobooks to always go back to. And if it's good, you get more of it. So it's win-win. You won't. It's not really, it won't
so
ruin
it's
what
from
these books
it's
are.
from Bad Wolf Productions.
But they're in the UK, right?
Yeah, it's
Pretty
under.
sure.
It's
Yeah.
like Sony in the UK.
Oh.
It's gonna be a
Okay.
10-part series.
Wow.
So I guess 10 episodes. They ain't gonna do that. No.
And
10.
do you
They ain't gonna
know
have to-
it's called The Winter King, but is it just the first book?
Oh,
or
it
are
is
they doing
just-
the whole
okay.
thing?
It is just. Oh, it's the first book. So 10. We get 10 episodes for the first book. Yay!
Yay!
Well,
Oh,
that
An
could-
entire
so-
episode devoted to Gorfith and yelling.
That could be good if they take their time.
Yeah,
That
I
could be
agree.
good.
Like 10 episodes per book, you can get a good adaptation out of that.
Yeah.
And-
Or are they just calling it The Winter King and they're doing the whole thing?
No, it says the first book.
Beauty, sweet.
And
cool.
the fact that the Brits are doing it, the Brits, thank goodness,
this
will
is dear to them,
cast.
probably.
They will cast
Yeah.
people who are talented and fugly over people who are good looking and can't act. So thank you. I swear, if beautiful Arthur and Dervil and all these freaking dark age warlords are running around with their Pantene Pro V hair flapping in the wind, and their pristinely washed, freshly exfoliated faces. I will throw this around about or at the faces of the people making it. Make them freaking dirty and gross.
Yeah. Make them fugly. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my.
That is the thing about Derval too. He's really smelly, apparently.
Yes, they're
They-
all.
They're all probably pretty gross.
They
Yeah.
were like, "You
That was a weird
smell
time.
really bad." He's like, "I took a bath last summer."
Yeah, that was really funny. That was pretty
So
good.
it is the Bad Wolf Company it's the people who helped relaunch Doctor Who under Russell T Davies.
I was
Back
going to
in
say that must have
whatever.
something to do with Doctor Who.
So
It's
the
called
company's recent credits include HBO and the BBC's His Dark Materials, HBO's Industry, Sky's I Hate Susie, and A Discovery of Witches. So I don't know if any of those are good, but
Oh. I still have hope. I would actually watch this adaptation, and I never watch adaptations.
it doesn't
of
say
movies.
what network it's going to air on. They've done HBO shows. This thing needs to be on HBO.
I
needs to be on
know.
HBO.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. And I have
Yeah.
HBO.
I don't ever get into these freaking. I don't ever get into. I mean, yeah, but Derval only bathed once every.
Yeah,
you know.
they probably didn't bathe all that often, but they probably weren't as gross as we think that they were.
Can
They
we
are-
do you all want to reconvene if they do an adaptation?
100%.
Oh, I would love that.
What
would love
I mean,
that.
Albert, is after the battles, like after these battles, ain't no one pristine looking. They are dirty as crap
Right,
after
right.
these battles.
Yeah.
But I don't get into these adaptations. I never get into them. I'm just like, whatever.
Me neither.
But I will 100% watch this show.
Me
if
too.
it comes
Yeah.
out. Oh my gosh, please let it be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm praying for that too, for sure.
There's no news on when it's coming out, so it'll probably be a year or two. But man, I will definitely watch.
I might even have to reread these between.
So
now and
everyone, thank you so much. For
I
joining
definitely
me
will.
here.
Thank you so
And
much, Alan.
My three guests, Johanna, Theo, Sarah, thank you guys so much for joining. And I didn't know it was going to be 2 hours. I didn't think there was that much to talk about.
This was a blast. I love it.
I know. I still
Yeah.
thought of more stuff we could have talked about.
These
There's a lot
are-
more we could have talked about.
We'll
but
save it. We'll
so
save
good.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, everyone who's watching this, like, remember how little we talked about Arthur.
Yeah.
You know?
If you haven't read these, read them. Like, don't. You're probably not around anymore if you haven't. But if you haven't,
it's-
just go read them.
It
They're
is
worth
so good. So if you're not following these three, you definitely should. Their channels are linked down below in the description. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully we've convinced you to go read these or listen to them. They are fantastic. So you guys hang around. I'm going to end the stream. Bye, everybody in the comments.
Thanks,
Thank you guys for joining. Sorry, Baron.
Oh.
Baron's here. Let's go. Out.